Hello and welcome to the Gonzales Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell. Patrick is out today. He's still working on his Gonzales poll, and he gets a lot of media attention doing that. So he's a big show off. So he's not going to be here this morning. I'm just going to handle duties here. Notwithstanding that, we have a very, very special guest. I've been reading her since she joined the Baltimore Banner, and that's Rona Kobell. Did I pronounce that right, Rona?
Yes.
Oh boy, I'm one for one now. Um, Rona is the regional reporter covering Baltimore County for the Baltimore Banner. She's also an affiliated professor with Loyola University here in the great state of Maryland. How are you doing this morning, Rona?
I'm doing pretty well. It was a big day yesterday, but today seems more calm. So thank you for
Uh,
asking.
it's calm until the gavel goes down in Annapolis today, so we
Oh,
have a
right,
little
yeah,
bit of a respite.
that's
Um,
Pam Wood and Brenda Wintrode's problem today.
right.
So not mine.
Now, the Baltimore Banner that started a few years ago. Can you tell us just the background on it and what's going on there at the Banner?
Sure. So the Baltimore Banner began with Stuart Bainham, who was, I believe, a senator delegate
Yes.
in the Maryland legislature. And he was interested in founding a news operation because he remembered the robust coverage that had occurred when he was senator and wasn't really seeing that from the papers that were here. Um, Let alone other coverage. And so he was in negotiations at one point to buy the Baltimore Sun, and then at one point to buy the entire Tribune company. But those discussions fell apart, and he decided to start his own paper called the Baltimore Banner. And he quickly sort of picked off the best Sun reporters who were willing to go with him and start it. And then hired many more people from the Sun and the Post and also all over the country. Um, and we have an office at Pratt Street by the Inner Harbor, and we have about 90 journalists now, I think.
Wow.
Um, when the Banner first started, they were very city focused. They covered City Hall and police matters and neighborhoods in the city, but a little bit as they went along, excuse me, they realized that the counties were really important, and so they've now have reporters in Baltimore, Howard, and Anne Arundel County. Um, Not to mention the rest of the staff chips in a lot to go to these counties and cover things. And then of course we have a stellar team in Annapolis, Pam and Brenda, who
Mhm.
are embarking on their first of a very long slog today. So shout out to the awesome ladies of the Banner who are holding it down in Annapolis.
Right.
Um, and also everybody else who is working, all the reporters, senators, and delegates who are working their butts off these 90 days to make some legislation to make what is already a very good state even better and more responsive to citizens' needs. So it's going to be a long 90 days. Um, but I think we will see some excellent journalism out of it, especially with the upcoming budget fights.
And when I subscribed to the Baltimore Banner from the very beginning, I got tired of the rest of the sort of quote unquote newspapers out there. And I enjoy it. I love the stories. They're well written. And I love in the morning getting that email for the rundown for the day. And because some stories I don't have an interest in, a lot of stories I do. And I just click on the ones I like. And when I get on
Mhm.
there and read it, there's firsthand accounts, there's live quotes from real people. It's not just a digestion uh,
Mhm.
of other people's news, and it's not just an amalgamation of other news articles. It's real journalism, and I really enjoy and appreciate that. So kudos to you all there at the
That
Banner. I'm sure you're
I mean,
very
that's one of the things that I always thought was so delightful about a newspaper. Everyone seems to have these Substacks these days. All these kind of well-known writers will start a Substack, and they can make a living with a couple hundred subscribers, paying $100 a year. But what you're getting when you read them is their take on whatever it is. the thing that's so
Correct.
delightful about a newspaper is you open it up, and I'm not really interested in sports, but I might see a story on sports and I just can't get enough of it. It's so interesting and well done. Or, you're going to read something about what happened in your neighborhood, and then you see this, really fun article about, a new drink that's all over town,
Right.
or a new restaurant, or a new bowling alley that's kind of retro, and it just, it kind of takes your breath away how interesting a place can be, when you see the breadth of what's happening. And you can only really find that in a newspaper, because any Substack writer isn't going to have that. They're going to have their takes on whatever it is. And so I really feel like, I mean, I am personally sad. I'm delighted that the Banner is doing so well, but I'm sad that some of our competitors are not as robust as they used to be, because I enjoyed reading the other newspapers and seeing what was going on and seeing how they approach things. And I find that, there's just not much content. Like you said, there's a lot of aggregation, there's a lot of repeating things other people have said, and you're not really necessarily learning new things. So I do think that's something that's really great about the Banner. We have a lot of different voices, a lot of people from different interesting backgrounds. And so when I think that's reflected in the product, you're seeing, not sort of the conventional takes all the time. So yeah,
Right.
thank you. We love it. I think we're having a good time. I
Yeah.
certainly am. It's a fun place to work. And I've been really allowed to put my own stamp on my beat, and you know write the stories that I think are interesting,
Right.
which is great. So
Speaking of stories, you cover Baltimore County. You all just selected a new county executive, did you not?
yes, we did. The first full-time woman county executive, Senator Kathy Klausmeyer, longtime Senator Kathy Klausmeyer, was sworn in yesterday. So at about this time, she is in Towson in her new office, learning all the ropes of how to run the third largest county in Maryland.
From all I've read, and I've read a lot in the Banner, she seemed to be the obvious choice to me, and the best suited for the job, given her years in Annapolis. She knows everybody down there, who to call, what to do. If something comes up and it's a Baltimore County issue, there and them in Annapolis, the powers to be are going to listen to County Executive Klausmeyer, and I think that was the obvious choice. There were some other people that were up for it. I think there were five main candidates, including Ms. Klausmeyer. We had Jim Broshin, Yara Sheik, Barry Williams, and George Pertakakis. You covered the race. What do you see? What was the dynamic there?
Um, I think they were all really good candidates. And there was constituencies behind all of them, I think. Yara Sheikh is somebody who's very well known in Baltimore County. She has been an activist for the school system, for homeless and hungry and unhoused people. She's the chair of the library board. She's a strong activist and incredibly smart woman. Um, I think the concern with Yara is that she never held public office before, and it is a really big job. Um,
Mm,
then Barry Williams, he had been the Parks and Recreations director, and I think people really liked and respected Barry. I just think he didn't have the votes. And Jim Brochin, I think, was Kathy's probably Kathy's main competition. Yara and Jim would be, I would think, her main competition. But Jim Brochin made some disparaging remarks about um, detainees who were illegally in this country and wanting to cooperate with ICE. And that did not sit well with a lot of the
mm,
people um, who heard him make these remarks, including at least 5 of the county council members that I spoke to. And so I think a couple of the councilmen might have been leaning towards Jim. They leaned out after those comments. So I mean, Kathy was the obvious favorite from the beginning because she had so many years in Annapolis. She's very close with Johnny. She's very close with David Marks. But the advantage that she had on the council was it's 3 Republicans and 4 Democrats. And the 3 Republicans were always, once Kathy announced that she was going to run, they were always likely to support her and to vote in a block. That's because Marks knows her very well. Wade Catch knows her very well. They served in Annapolis together, and Crandall knows her well because their districts abut. So you only need 4 votes, and she had 3 already kind of locked up. So she just needed 1 more Democrat, and with no clear favorite among the other candidates, I think it was pretty easy for her to get 1 vote. And then once she got that 1 vote, I think the other 3 realized, we can support her. We like her. And so, I mean, it's historic because she is the first woman. And I also think that they really did deliberate. I've heard people say, the fix was in. I don't think that's not what I'm saying here. I think she always had a really good chance. And the fix isn't in because of any kind of, I don't want to say like backroom agreement that's been made. The fix is in because she was the most qualified person to have the job. And because she does check a lot of boxes, being a woman, knowing government, which is all to say that she was incredibly qualified for the job. So usually when people say the fix is in, it implies some kind of like nefarious purpose to put in somebody. I think the case with her is, she was the favorite because she'd earned that, as opposed to being the favorite because she's somebody's cousin or uncle or, something like that.
Right.
Or knows somebody or does business with somebody. I mean, I think she came to politics from being the president of the elementary school PTA. She didn't have some kind of a pedigree. Her father's a tavern owner. She worked her way up through local politics to become the longest serving member of the Maryland Senate. So, I mean, that is something to be admired and to celebrate. There are still not as many women in politics as there are men. There are no women on the Baltimore County Council. There has never been a woman county executive since this form of government began in 1956. So, I mean, I'm going to be watching her closely. Don't get me wrong. I'm not fangirling here. I'm going to be watching her closely. But I think that the people who are kind of sour grapesing it, because they don't think she's progressive enough or, something like that. I mean, she earned this position. She interviewed for it and she earned it.
Seems to me she hit the sweet spot with her political position to where, you said she got all 3 of the Republicans on the council and was able to get enough of the other votes. I think you said it was unanimous to get that. I've known Senator Brosh in a while too, and I think he may be a step too conservative for the taste of the Democratic members of the council. And we also had George Pertikakis out there in the running.
Here's something else about Jim that I think is interesting.
Sure.
One thing that we heard about Kathy, in my reporting for a story that will be out later today, and also just from what people said about her. Kathy is a really good listener. Kathy is a fast learner, and she's a really good listener. She listens. And when Jim came to speak to the county, in addition to the remarks that he made about immigrants, He came
Mhm.
in with a plan right across the board of cutting every department by 15 to 20%, except for code enforcement and public safety. So right off the bat, he was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I think that also turned people off because certainly the county needs to tighten its belt. And there are lots of things about the county that are not working properly, including probably first and foremost, permitting. Permitting is incredibly slow. Um,
Mhm.
and I think there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. But, coming in to a job and saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that versus coming into a job and saying, I'm a very competent person. I'm here to listen and solve problems. What is it that you need? I think the second approach was Kathy's approach. And I think
Mhm.
that was a winning approach because, I don't know that cutting every department 15 to 20% right off the bat is what you want to do. It may be some departments need to add people and some departments need to cut. I mean, but you don't really know that until you get in there and you see what's going on. So I think
You'll be with Pam Ward down in Annapolis, and you'll be covering all of this U.S. to pertains to Baltimore County. Looks like it's going to be a long 90 days with the budget situation down there, and I'm sure the county executive will be down there advocating for Baltimore County, and we'll see how that turns out. Now,
it's very difficult. Yeah.
you also have an interest in environmental matters. Uh, can you
Yeah.
talk to us about your reporting on that?
So I've been an environmental journalist for about 20 years. That's what I did before I came to the Banner. And I'd
Mhm.
like to think I still have a hand in it. So I'm looking at things in Baltimore County, like the URDL, the urban rural demarcation line, which is something people talk about a lot here. Two-thirds
Right.
of the county is basically almost off limits to development, and one-third of the county is basically shouldering all of the affordable housing. And really, two districts on the east, one on the east and one on the west, are sort of shouldering a lot of the affordable housing. And with more housing comes a lot of stresses on infrastructure, schools, um, and these two districts are basically asking the question, like, should we be thinking about moving a little bit into the URDL, not eliminating it, but just making a little bit of strategic cuts into the URDL. And there's a lot of pushback because the people who live particularly in the northern part of Baltimore County where the farms are, and that
Mhm.
area is really protecting our water, um, don't want to hear of that. So to me it's there's environmental justice issues in terms of who gets septic and who gets sewer, and where houses can be built and where they can't. And so I try to, even though I'm not technically an environment reporter anymore, I have a lot of knowledge about land use and zoning, and I try to put it into use in my reporting so that people have a full picture of the history of land in Baltimore County, what it was used for in the past, what it's used for now, and how decisions that are made in government are, either further our our desire to progress or take us backward.
Every time I read something about Baltimore County, the most controversial issues, I think, are zoning issues and building issues, and
Mhm,
do we have enough adequate public facilities to
mhm,
support any development that's going on? And it's really been a hot button issue there over 10 years now. And the fact that they're looking at other avenues to build housing and
mhm,
infrastructure and such, I think is a good thing to look at.
mhm,
And I know you'll keep your eye on the public officials there to make sure that they're doing it in the most transparent way possible. But it seems that there's always some sort of controversy regarding any development in Baltimore County, especially in the Towson area. There's always something. What was it, that York Road corridor that there's
mhm,
always something about. Um, How what's your background prior to journalism? I know you went to college and you wrote grants or something, I understand.
Well, I've basically been a journalist since I graduated college in 1994.
Yeah.
I went to University of Michigan, so go blue. Um, and I've worked in journalism pretty much since then. I've taken kind of detour breaks to do some academic work. I've written a lot of reports for the Able Foundation about environmental issues. I've been teaching. I taught for 7 semesters at different colleges. I went and got a master's at Maryland um, in journalism. So, and I've done radio work, and I made a documentary with a couple friends called Eroding History. That's about the Black lands on the Eastern Shore and what's happening
Right.
to them. So, I've done a lot of, I would say, journalism adjacent work, but I've always, I would say, really been a journalist. It's just when the journalism industry left me, I had to I had to find other ways to make a living. And
Right.
like many of my colleagues, I pivoted and got some new skills. And that's I continue to do that actually. Try to learn new things to stay current, I guess. And make sure that I the decision is never made for me again, what happens to my career, that I'm in control of it.
Great. I want to have you back on, talk about you mentioned Eastern Shore environmental issues. I really want to have you back on, talk about that, because as you know, Eastern Shore is near and dear to my heart. I live on this side of the ditch, and this is my homeland, so to speak. Well,
It is a
Rona,
wonderful it's a wonderful homeland.
it is. It really truly is. If you get over to this side of the ditch, let me know and I'll get you a crab cake or something, okay?
I'll definitely take you up on that, especially since they're so expensive these days.
Well, Rona, I appreciate you being on. We're going to be sure to have you back on again. But I look at the little clock on the wall, and I'm afraid it's time for us to say goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick, wherever you are. Good luck on that Gonzales poll, and Patrick will be back on again here real soon. Rona, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.